The Mercedes GLE is now a much stronger contender in the segment for premium badged, large luxury SUVs. This second generation model gets smarter looks that clothe a bigger, classier cabin that, in most models, gives you 7 seats. And buyers also get redesigned engines, a more sophisticated four-wheel drive system, and greater levels of safety and media connectivity. It all means that key rivals like BMW's X5 and Audi's Q7 must now take this car very seriously indeed.
Few luxury SUV drivers delight in throwing their cars around, a much greater priority being the soft, cosseting ride that this GLE's AIRMATIC air suspension serves up on the 6-cylinder models, but not on the 4-cylinder entry-level 300D diesel variant that we're trying here, which gets instead what Mercedes calls its agility control suspension package, including passive springs with adaptive damping. Now, we've opted for this base 245 HP 2-litre engine because it'll probably be the choice of most GLE buyers. But we were disappointed to find that doing that meant that we were restricted not only to cruder damping, but also to the older and less reactive version of the Mercedes 4MATIC four-wheel drive system. This uses a fixed gear between the axles, apportioning 50% of torque to either end of the car. More powerful GLE variants get a torque split on demand version of the 4MATIC setup. This uses a multi-plate clutch system which normally sends 100% of power to the rear wheels, but when necessary can send up to 40% to the fronts when required. You're going to need to know a bit more about engines. This 300D model's 4-cylinder diesel manages to be reasonably efficient. It delivers up to 46.3 mpg on the WLTP combined cycle and up to 162 grams per kilometre of NEDC rated CO2. If you want to do better, then you'll need to know that the same power plant is also used in a lower 194 HP state of tune in the alternative 350DE plug-in model, where it's mated to a 100 kilowatt electric motor and powered by a 31.2 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery. When fully charged, that can facilitate an impressive WLTP-rated all-electric driving range in that PHEV version of up to 61.5 miles. If you're looking at a 6-cylinder diesel GLE, there are two options: the 272 HP 350D and the 330 HP 400D. Petrol people, meanwhile, get to sample the Mercedes brand's EQ Boost mild hybrid technology in the GLE 450 and the Mercedes-AMG GLE 53 6-cylinder derivatives, which respectively develop either 367 or 435 horsepower. All the GLE models are predictably most in their element on the highway. On a mainstream variant, there's certainly not quite the steering feedback or the body control that you'd need to rival, say, a Porsche Cayenne or a BMW X5 on the twisty stuff, but cruising refinement is exemplary. And on the 6-cylinder versions, being able to raise the AIRMATIC suspension means that you'll be able to go further than most luxury SUVs off the beaten track too. You expect a contender of this kind to make a big pavement statement, and of course this second generation GLE model does, courtesy of its larger dimensions and imposing front end. That's embellished by this twin power domed bonnet flowing down into an upright radiator grille, flanked by piercing LED high performance headlamps. The slanting C-pillar is characteristic of this model line, and the cleaner flanking allowed the design team to create a far more flowing silhouette for the alternative coupe version of this design. Here though, as you can see, our focus is on the standard SUV model, which gets these larger 20-inch wheels sitting in prominent arches with larger 22 inches available on request. Under the skin there's an all-new 33% stiffer MHA modular high architecture platform, which now incorporates a much higher mix of aluminium. Okay, so the outside is now properly modern. Can the same be said inside? In a word, yes. Now, in place of the rather haphazard cabin design that characterised the previous GLE, we instead served up an interior that, in our view, sets a fresh benchmark for quality and sophistication. Some features are, of course, familiar from other large Mercedes models, primarily this distinctive widescreen cockpit layout with its twin 12.3-inch virtual displays, which can be activated by the provided Hey Mercedes voice-activated functionality, and, of course, there is an exemplary standard of fit, finish and materials quality, with a very high-end blend of leather, open pore wood and aluminium accents. Other elements though are unique to this GLE, perhaps most notably this prominent raised console between the seats that incorporates these arched grab handles either side of the palm rest here, and the fact that the central vents, usually round in other Mercedes models, are squarical here. Time to take a look in the rear. There's 69mm more legroom and 33mm more headroom than there was in the previous GLE. Enough in fact so that 6-footers can easily be accommodated, even if, as here, the huge panoramic glass roof has been fitted. Plus, this time around, you not only get a backrest which can be adjusted for rake, but a seat base that can slide over a range of 100mm for extra knee space. Now let's look at the third row, the provision of which will be a new concept for most regular buyers of this Mercedes model line. Once you're in these rearmost pews, it'll be abundantly clear that a 4,930mm vehicle length isn't sufficient for proper adult standards of legroom at the very back of a 7-seat SUV. Or it isn't in this one anyway. Even if you can persuade those ahead of you to move their centre bench base forward and compromise their legroom quite a lot, it'll be very difficult for any occupants above school age to feel in any way comfortable back here. Finally, let's check out the boot, and that's accessed via this Easy Pack powered tailgate. Obviously, there won't be much space at all with this third seating row upright, but when you manually fold the chairs into the floor, 630 litres of cargo capacity is freed up, or at 825 litres if the middle bench is pushed right forward. If you need more, then the 40-20-40 split of the second row backrest means that longer items like skis can be accommodated, and if you use the electrical functionality to fold the second row, then as much as 2,055 litres of space can be freed up. Ultimately, the Stuttgart brand builds more SUVs than anyone else, and there's a reason why globally this is the most popular model of that kind that the company makes. It's true that there are sportier, more dynamic models of this sort that you could buy, but we're struggling to think of many that offer a better all-round package. Capable, practical and luxurious, this is the best mainstream large SUV that we've yet seen from the three-pointed star by far. Mercedes is now at last fully credible in this segment.